country 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. And where my fathers lie, land of the pilgrims ride, from every mountainside, let freedom reign.
Carrol Woods, he is with COSA, which is the Council on Substance Abuse. Did I do that right here? All right. And so he's going to come up and talk to us about that. So if you will, please give Daryl a warm welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
And thank you for letting me be here at VFW Smith-Wynn, Post 96. Commander Clark, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. As he said, my name is Carrol Woods. First things, I'm going to let you know I'm not a preacher, I'm not a politician or a salesperson, or a great speaker. However, I am a friend of Martin so they give me some data on that one, okay? Actually, I'm the program coordinator for Hope for Heroes and Families, working with veterans, active members, and their families, and to
It's just right at that one spot. Go ahead.
test one. All right. So I work with veterans and active military families to
Gee, you turned the thing down.
Actually, that's not.
to prevent suicide. We do wraparound services, not only for the veterans, but also the family members. I'm very lucky to see today Commissioner Kent Davis, one of my bosses. I'm gonna claim you, sir, because I do work with the VA in some way. You ain't doing that. You give us money, so I appreciate that. Growing up, I know you all probably don't remember this, but growing up in Nashville, Tennessee, I lived in a house that did not have running water or heating, anything like that. But it did have a pot-belly stove. And I know that maybe you all do not remember a pot-belly stove, where you put the wood in there and the coal, and it gets real hot, and sometimes it get that red hot, you know? And my mama would say, don't get close to that stove because it will burn you. All right? Don't get close to that stove because it will burn you. Well, at 4, I really did not know what burning was, so I got close to that pot-belly stove. And so I still have the scar on my hand right now that reminds me of that pot-belly stove. But then, I also have stressors, okay? Stressors that I cannot see. Stressors that I keep inside me that I do not let out. And sometimes I have a hard time talking about it. To my wife, to my kids, you know, sometimes the wife, yes, she gives me a stress too, but I cannot talk to her about that either. That would be a no-no. But unfortunately today, the #1 issue facing the veterans community is suicide. According to the national average, between 17 and 22 veterans commit suicide daily. That's more than 6,000 annually. The rate of suicide for veterans is more than 50% higher than that of non-veterans. As the global war on terrorism continues, there will be more veterans facing mental health issues such as post-traumatic stress disorder and other mental health disorders. At the age of 45, which some of us are past that age, and dear, middle-aged people, especially men, have the highest rate of suicide. 80% of adults by suicide in the U.S. are among men and women, 45 to 54. Men ages 85 and older have the highest rate of group in the country. Many factors contribute to the risk of being alone, history of violence, and access to lethal firearms, guns. The national suicide rate for males is 1.3 times higher than civilian average, as I said before. For females, it's 2.1 times higher. But let's bring it home. Home here in Alabama. The National Center for Veterans Analysis and Statistics estimates there's over 300,000 veterans here in Alabama. Okay. Out of that number, unfortunately, in 2001, 143 veterans committed suicide. One is too many, but 143. 71% of suicide attempts happen within 1 hour of the call. Also here in Alabama, the top 5 areas that we have is Madison County, Alabama Gulf Coast, Birmingham Metro, the Wiregrass area, and right here at home in the River region. Now, Hopeful Hills and Family, COSA, we serve 19 counties. So we straight from the Alabama-Mississippi line to the Georgia line. What we're trying to do is to prevent this from happening. As I said, the Department of Veterans Affairs we worked with was awarded $52 million to 80 agencies like myself or our organization to help prevent that. Unfortunately, we are the only one in Alabama, right here in Montgomery. Now, as I said earlier, it's stretching to the whole state. So, this is it's a grant called Staff Sergeant Parker Avoiding Fox Suicide Prevention Grant. We're here to help. We pass papers out around, a referral form. If you know anyone, if you know anyone that needs help, do not hesitate to give us a call. Do not hesitate to call 988-1 if you know a veteran who needs help. So many times we have, as I said before, we have stresses that we do not want to communicate with each other, but we do need help in doing so. So, as Commander Carrol probably know about this, that one thing that the American Legion is doing right now, a VFW, is to prevent suicide. So be the one to say, hey, I can help you. Talk to your friends, let people know what's going on. If y'all have stresses, don't hold it inside. Let someone know what's going on. Any way that you can would help. So talk to others about how you're feeling, ask for help when you know you need it. Know there are people ready to help. Remember your family and friends that we care. Now, for family members, caregivers, friends, veterans, interested in civilian, what can you do? As I said, be the one that someone can turn to. If it's not you, find someone, spread the word out. So, I know I had 30 minutes, but I know my attention span is not very long myself, so I'm gonna give the same thing to you. Not only say thank you for your service, but thank you for your sacrifice. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for making this world a better place. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you, Joseph. Listen, I have a friend in another state. He's going through some really hard times. Is there COSA in these other states also?
COSA's not in other states, but however, there may be an agency in that area that he can reach out to.
Yeah.
Okay.
You let me know, I'll contact the commissioner in that state and
In Florida. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Appreciate it.
if I could, I want to give a personal testament to Carrol and COSA, the work they're doing. This is not a fly-by-night operation. They're doing real work in saving lives of our comrades in Alabama. We keep talking about veteran suicide. It is a real issue, and it affects not only that veteran, but their families and the whole community. So God bless COSA. They're doing great work, and I just wanted to say that.
Yes, sir.
Did we see an increase of veteran suicides after the end of the Afghanistan war and how that ended? did we see, especially with the Afghanistan veterans, Afghanistan and Iraq veterans, did we see all of a sudden turn to be a younger cohort?
Right. Well, there's no rhyme or reason to it. However, by the statistics, they're saying veterans who are the age, or veterans active also, numbers, is the age between the age 18 and 25. And then on the far side of that is veterans who are 55 and up and doing that. Now, the reason why this grant was submitted, Staff Sergeant Fox was a young man who joined the military at age 18. He was at Fort Benning, which I think is Fort Moore now. No, excuse me, yeah, Fort Benning, it was Fort Moore now. And he was a sniper instructor. Life of the party, always had something good to say to someone. And then at age 25, he committed suicide himself. So that's why they recognize him. So to answer your question, I would say yes, but again, there's no rhyme or reason for it in doing it. If I see anyone in the back. Yes, sir.
Have they done a study of any kind to separate the people that came out of Vietnam? Suicide rate was astronomically low. Jobs were here in the country. People went to work versus what they're going through now in Iraq, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and all that. So what is the basic cause of the difference between the two eras?
Well, there is a study right now going on by the gentleman named, last name spelled Rudd, R-U-D-D, who was looking at that information that you just asked about. But I would say not only what has happened in the past 10 to 15 years, but COVID also had a lot to do with it, isolation, a lot of hurt. As I said, people not able to speak themselves in a voice where people would understand. And one thing about mental health, people, it's a thin line between sane and insane. We do know that. What time you get up in the bed, or what time you get up in the bed at all. But the thing is that when we look at people and they say they have mental health issues, it's a stigma that people have, and that's why we keep it inside ourselves instead of expressing our opinions on what's going on. So the referral form that I gave out, Commander, you have my number. If anyone, if you know anyone who needs to get in contact with me, please do not hesitate to reach out doing that. Or filling that form out also, there's a resource number on there. You can get in contact with me also in doing that. So gentlemen and ladies, I do thank you all for your time and attention. I really appreciate it, the opportunity to come and talk to you.
Carrol talked about veteran suicide. It really is a scourge. I would say it's a crisis. And I wanted to let you know some of the things that are going on besides what COSA is doing. There seems to be a growing joint effort to address this. Carrol gave some statistics, but I throw this statistic out because I think it's shocking. So we recently stopped to commemorate the 22nd anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. Since 9/11, we have lost about 7,000 service members in combat in places like Iraq, Afghanistan. So think about that number, 7,000. That's a tragedy. Does anybody want to venture a guess how many veterans have taken their own lives via suicide since 9/11? 120,000. So we always talk about combat deaths, but think about that stark difference of 7,000 combat deaths versus 120,000 suicide deaths. That's a stark reality that brings it home. And actually, that number is probably low. It's probably a lot higher than that because coroners don't report a lot of suicides as suicides. So there is a growing joint effort. I want to tell you very quickly about some efforts going on. First of all, Commander Carr was in our kickoff for something called Operation We Remember. We started this last year. We think a visual reminder of veteran suicide deaths is important. So last year we started putting in cooperation with college campuses and student veterans organizations, put one flag up for every suicide death of a veteran the previous year. The last year, we had 152 flags, and we had 12 colleges and universities that put that visual display out with a placard that explained what it was for and asked people to please help, raise awareness of veteran suicide. We did 12 campuses last year. This year, we kicked off our campaign. Commander Carrol was at the kickoff. We have 45 institutions of higher education and high schools now that are putting those visual reminders out for Operation We Remember to raise awareness. We're not stopping there. Everybody in the veteran community kind of realized when it comes to veteran suicide, we've really kind of been reactive. We wait until there is a suicide or someone's in real crisis, or we try to fix the problems afterwards. So we've started a new effort called Operation Resilience. And what we're trying to do is work with the active duty military and veteran service organizations and nonprofits to teach veterans and families for the warning signs of suicidal behavior, and to not let yourself get into a crisis, and to remove some of that stigma. So a veteran feels like it's okay if I say something that I need help, and everybody should help. The best way to help is peer-to-peer mentoring. Another veteran being on the lookout for a buddy and saying, is everything okay? Even up to the point of, I'm worried about you, and asking them, have you been thinking about harming yourself or taking your own life? Or a difficult question like, why don't you let me take your firearm from you while you're going through this struggle in life? You could save a life by doing that. So we're trying to be more proactive. We've had a series of seminars and panel discussions around the state under Operation Resilience to try to teach people, don't let veterans get into a situation like that. One last one, Operation Iron Ruck. A lot of operations. This is not our effort, but student veterans organizations at Auburn and the University of Alabama for several years have gotten together, and during Iron Bowl week, they do an Iron Ruck march between the two campuses, 151 miles. The Student Veterans Association, you talk about putting aside the rivalry, and they march 151 miles between the two campuses to deliver the game ball for the Iron Bowl, and it's all about raising awareness of veterans' mental health and veteran suicide. It's going to take place again this week, November 22nd through the 24th, I think. So that's another operation going on. Real quickly, there are some related issues. Mental health has a cumulative effect, and there are other issues that affect suicide rates. One of them is opioid addictions. Luckily, the state of Alabama is getting hundreds of millions of dollars in an opioid settlement. We're talking $300 million to combat the issue in Alabama. When we found out about it, we kind of raised our hand and said, you are going to take care of veterans. Nobody even thought to include the veteran community in that, so we lobbied. I got appointed to the Opioid Commission. It meets this Thursday, September 28th, for the first time. And I tell you, I'm going in loaded with statistics, and I'm going to advocate for earmarking a lot of that money to combat opioid addiction and overprescription of opioids in the veteran community. The last one is we see brain injuries as a factor in causing suicides often, IED attacks, lingering concussory type injuries from Vietnam and things like that. So we are sponsoring with several other agencies on October 26th a huge traumatic brain injury summit to bring experts in from around the country here to Alabama to talk about traumatic brain injury and how that affects mental health and leads to suicides. Plenty of other things going on in our department. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this. You may have missed this death, but a Vietnam veteran, Judge John Carrol, who after Vietnam was an A6 pilot in Vietnam. He came back to Alabama, eventually went to law school, became a judge, became dean of the Cumberland Law School at Samford University. Did a lot for the veterans community. He passed away a couple of weeks ago, and his memorial ceremony was this past Friday in Birmingham. Beautiful memorial ceremony. He was the one that got veteran treatment courts established in Alabama, trying to take care of the veteran community. A real loss to the veteran community. A wonderful man, too. So I just wanted to mention that. Lots of Veterans Day events coming up. It's not too early to think about that. As far as our department, things are still on track. Our state veterans home down in Enterprise is about 75% completed with construction. I joke about this, but for a government project, believe it or not, it's on schedule and on budget. I swear. So we're still looking at opening next summer to admit our first residents there, so that's gonna help, because we have a waiting list of about 300 people to get into our state veterans home at any given time. And last, but certainly, two more notes. The national cemetery system here in Alabama that runs the Montevallo and Fort Mitchell National Cemeteries just got a new cemetery director. Her name is Deborah Kendrick. I went up and met her a couple of weeks ago. Very nice lady. She's from Alabama. She went to Troy and Faulkner University. So that's going to be a good thing. Alabama taking over those national cemeteries here in Alabama. And last but certainly not least, you probably heard me talk before, Alabama sponsors a dependent scholarship program for the dependents of disabled veterans. This week, that program went online. We've been doing paper-based applications since 1951, so if you know of anybody who might be eligible for that dependent scholarship program, they can just go to our website, apply right on the website. It's a lot easier now. And I think that's all the notes I have, Commander. As always, reach out if I can help with anything. I mean that sincerely.